We come tonight to discuss the subject of unflinching commitment to his or her needs. And I believe that the introduction that has been given by the chairman, I think points us to the significance of a topic such as this in this season that we are in, a time that is very challenging. And I believe that the call to dedicate ourselves and be sensitive to the meeting of his needs and the meeting of her needs become even more critical, so that there can be harmony, there can be greater peace, and there can be greater celebration in the marriage institution. And so I'm with Nyambura here, and we are doing very well. Just forgot to mention that, married 19 years, and God has kept us well. Our son is 14, our daughter Naima is 8, and it has been a joy living life with Nyambura and enjoying marriage for the last 19 years. It has been a great, great blessing. So the question of needs is extremely critical to the health of a marriage. I would say that the happiness of marriage, the joy of marriage, the fulfillment of marriage, the success of marriage is directly hinged on our commitment to meet the needs of one another. The institution of marriage is very unique. It is a covenant relationship. And being a covenant relationship, it means that it is an exclusive relationship. That means that no one else apart from the two of us, except God and the Holy Spirit, Christ, is invited into the relationship. It is an exclusive relationship to the couple. And therefore, it's a covenant between the couple and God. It is exclusive. What that means, in terms of implication, is that it is only Nyambura who can meet my need, and I'm the only one who can meet her need, so that she cannot be able to experience the meeting of her needs through any other avenues, apart from Fred meeting Nyambura's need and Nyambura meeting Fred's need. So therefore, this means that couples then must seek to understand the needs of one another and seek to be committed to the meeting of those needs. So that if that fails to happen, then couples could be signing off the death certificate of their marriage if they do not seek to be sensitive and to meet each other's needs. Because where would Nyambura go for her needs to be met? And where would I go for my needs to be met? So this makes the subject of his needs and her needs very critical to the health, to the success, to the growth of any marriage. And I dare say that some marriages have fallen or have fallen apart or have failed because couples have not sought to meet the needs of one another. So with that introduction, we will get into the meat of the sharing tonight as we carry on. Nyambura leading us in that next slide.
Again, good evening and welcome to this session. We are hoping that being a session we wanted to learn, we have some pen and paper. Would like to just start off with looking at some needs that a survey that was done by the author of His Needs, Her Needs, that is Willard Haley. He did a survey where he found out that the most important needs that were common to most couples that he interviewed, and he interviewed couples who are born again, couples who are not born again, couples in the private sector, in government, people holding high positions, just people, members of a church, various couples, different. And he came up with a total of 10 needs that were high ranking. It is not to say that these are the only needs that are there, and we would encourage you after this session, as you discuss as a couple, to see which other needs you may have that are not listed here. But we thought for purposes of today, we give concentration on just these 10. And so you will see, let me first ask, I hope everybody is seeing the screen. If you're not, please indicate on the chat, and then a moderator can be able to let us know that you're not seeing the screen. We hope everyone is seeing. Eric, you can confirm?
Yeah, we can confirm. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent, thank you. So we have emotional needs on that table listed at the center. We have just put them in any order. What we are requesting is that as a couple, you write separately. Let the man write his needs on one hand, and the wife write your needs on the other hand. And because of time, we just want you to write the top 5. What are the top 5 needs from what we've given you? We've given you a total of 10 needs: financial support, physical attractiveness, intimate conversation, family commitment, admiration, sexual fulfillment, honesty and openness, domestic support, recreational companionship, and affection. We'll give you a minute or two to just be able to record your first 5 high ranking, where the most important need is number 1. And then 2, the second important, 3, 4, and 5.
Nyambura?
Yes?
There's some people who've missed out the question, so could you kindly repeat?
Okay. I'm hoping they're able to see the screen. Sorry about that. What we have on the screen are 10 needs that have been identified through a survey that was done by Willard Halley, who did a survey on what are a man's needs and what are a woman's needs, and he wrote the book, His Needs, Her Needs. And the 10 needs are what we have listed there. There is a table on your screen, and the middle column is showing emotional needs. So the question is, please rank your 5 most important needs from the emotional needs we've listed there. For the man on one side, you as a woman, what are your needs? Don't think about your husband. As a woman, this is my need number 1, this is my need number 2, need number 3. And the man can also list his, where number 1 is the high ranking, the most important, the most significant to you. In other ways, if for example, if it's me who's thinking about the need, what is it that if I was to get fulfilled from Fred would mean the most important thing to me? What is it that if he did would mean so much, it exceeds anything else? So that's what the significance is, the most important to you. I hope that is clear.
Yep, it is clear.
All right, so in the interest of time, we can have one was finished.
In the interest of time, sorry if we have hurried anybody, would just want to request a volunteer, a couple volunteer, or an individual who would want to just say what have you listed as your needs. If you've been able to do 1 to 5, that's fine. If you're able to do 1 to 3, just give us an idea of what you've been able to put together. If you can do it as a couple, you're welcome to do so. each of you individually.
So you can go ahead and raise your hand, and Martin, our moderator, will unmute you.
Yeah, anyone looking for volunteer?
I think we can press on.
Yes, Victoria.
Good evening.
Evening.
Okay, do you want me to list my name?
Yes, yes.
Okay, my number one was recreational companionship.
All right.
Then number two was intimate conversation.
Uh-huh.
And my third one was financial support.
Okay.
And the fourth one was domestic support.
Uh-huh.
And the last one was affection.
Wow, thank you so much. Wauma?
Isn't the husband going to say his for Victoria?
Okay.
I thought you want the couples to say theirs.
It's okay, you could go ahead.
Go ahead, that's in order.
My number one is sexual satisfaction.
All right.
Actually, I'm just kidding. Number one, that will be number 5. So number one is honesty and openness.
All right.
Number 2, affection.
Okay.
Number 3, family commitment. Number 4, intimate conversations. And number 5, sexual fulfillment.
Wow, thank you. Now we know you're fast.
I must state that it is quite interesting because he has just gone over exactly what I had on my list.
Wow.
Oh, fantastic. Great minds think alike.
Go ahead.
Eric, were you volunteering to give yours?
All right, so since I have given mine, I think I'll ask Catherine to give hers.
Okay.
All right, Catherine.
Number 1, family commitment. Number 2, affection. Number 3, honesty and openness. Number 4, intimate conversation. And number 5, recreational companionship.
All right. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you. Marianne?
So for me, it's intimate conversation.
Okay.
So I have number 2 has a tie of domestic support and financial support.
All right.
And then honesty and openness. Then number 4, affection. Then number 5, family commitment.
Wow, thank you so much. Tony? Andrew Joka?
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
Good. Mine is family commitment, number 1.
Okay.
Sexual fulfillment.
Great. You can raise your voice a bit.
First, family commitment.
Okay.
Second, sexual fulfillment.
Uh-huh.
Third, intimate conversation. 4th, physical attractiveness, and 5th, honesty and openness.
Wow, thank you so much. Peter Njeru, probably the last one.
Even physical.
Yes, that will be good.
Because I want you to tell me that I'm beautiful.
Okay,
Peter
let's have
Njeru.
Muted myself, sorry. Number
Okay.
1, family commitment.
Okay.
Number 2, honesty and openness. 3, affection. 4, sexual fulfillment. 5, recreational companionship.
Wow, thank you so much.
Thank you, our moderator, Brother Martin, for moderating that. And we want to thank our volunteers for sharing. Nyambura has already mentioned that this list is not conclusive, and it might also not be representative of the needs of every husband or of every wife. But these were items that were identified after several surveys that were done. And therefore, Nyambura mentioned that you could even indicate some other needs which might not even be on this list, whether it is a spiritual needs or encouragement or whichever words that you might want to use to be able to express what you believe is your critical need. As we go along, we will be able to show you how the couples that were surveyed ranked the needs in terms of what they considered to have been most important for the man and for the woman. You'll be able to see what they considered to have been important. Again, the issue of significance and the issue of importance is also something that is subjective to every spouse, so that there will not be any presentation from us that will suggest that the significance must be from any given number. However, as we go along, you'll also see that from that survey, the men and the women that were surveyed, you will see what they indicated as having been most important for them. And then every couple will just discuss amongst themselves whether they believe that that would be representative of who they are. So having said that, let me take just 2 minutes in the interest of time to provide a biblical foundation for what we are discussing tonight. We believe that from the very onset, it must be said that in terms of needs, that Ephesians chapter 5, verse 33, present to us two fundamental and foundational needs in a marriage. As the scriptures tell us, however, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. We believe that these are two critical pillars and two critical foundations upon which every other need must be hinged. And if you have time, then we'll discuss so deeply the whole question of love and the question and the issue of respect. But when you talk about love, you're not just talking about what you feel. You're also not just talking about what you say. You're talking about all these things put together, because there is an expression of feeling, but that feeling must be expressed, it must be said, it must be acted upon. So therefore, the love then would be all these things put together. You cannot just say, I love you, but you do not express it with your feelings, or you do not give of yourself, or you do not do something to show that love. And so therefore, however, we cannot define love just from the perspective of feeling, because feelings can fluctuate. So therefore, love has to be a conscious choice that we make, demonstrated by our commitment to one another. And that commitment can only be expressed if we have character that can sustain that expression of commitment and that choice. Without character, there cannot be true love. But we must also at this point say that the way that the woman understands love would be very different from the way the man understands love, as we shall be seeing shortly. For the woman, love is really the expression of that conversation, that affection, that intimacy. And however, the man, his main need would be and call and command would be to receive respect from the wife, so that the husband then is to show that love with action, with affection, with intimacy, with friendship, with care, with that closeness. The man ought to show love in that manner. However, the wife ought to show respect to the husband. And respect here basically is, first of all, acknowledging who the man is and his role in your life as a husband, and putting him in his position and allowing him to discharge the position that God has given to him. And so for the man, respect is really critical. We make reference to Dr. Emerson Eggerichs. The book is Love and Respect, and for the wife, the love would be spelled as couple. Love would be spelled as couple for the wife, which is closeness, openness, understanding, peacemaking, loyalty, esteem. So those would be things that would really define love for the wife. That closeness, that openness, that understanding, that peacemaking, that loyalty, that esteem, when you esteem her, that would define. For the husband, Dr. Eggerichs defines respect as chairs. Chairs. And chairs here would be conquest, appreciate his desire to work and achieve, conquest. Then H would be hierarchy, appreciate his desire to protect and provide. Then A would be authority, appreciate his desire to serve and to lead. Then I would be insight, appreciate his desire to analyze and counsel. And R would be relationship, appreciate his desire for shoulder-to-shoulder friendship. And S would be sexuality, appreciate his desire for sexual intimacy. A lot of times questions have been asked about respect. So let me just read this again, because people ask, how do I show him respect? What does he want in respect? Just remember the word conquest. He is created to conquer. So appreciate his desire to work and achieve. Let him not look like he cannot achieve. Appreciate his desire to work and achieve. He would like to work, he would like to achieve. Appreciate hierarchy. Men are created to be power human beings. They are power beings. And that's why you see them competing out there so vigorously and sometimes very ruthlessly, because they are power human beings. They are hierarchical in their mindset. They do not want to be put down. So the word hierarchy here is critical. Appreciate his desire to protect and provide and allow him to do so. But also acknowledge authority, appreciate his desire to serve and to lead. Wives who desire to be led, they need leadership and security. Allow the man to exercise that authority to serve and to lead. But also insight, appreciate his desire to analyze and counsel. They like giving counsel. Many times if you ask an opinion, they want to give you answers. If you have something that needs to be solved or just needing an idea, they want to solve it quickly. They are solution-oriented. Appreciate their desire to analyze and counsel. But R, which is relationship, appreciate his desire for shoulder-to-shoulder friendship. And as we shall be seeing shortly, they desire that relational companionship. The men desire that recreational and relational companionship as well. They do so. But then finally is their sexuality, appreciate his desire for sexual intimacy. So he defines respect as chairs, and thought I'll read that for us quickly, because people have asked questions about how do I show him respect? What does he want me to do to show him respect? So these two are foundational and fundamental. The woman is very much in touch with her emotions. She is an emotional being. She desires that tenderness, that conversation, that connection, that touch. Show her all that. That is affection. She desires affection. Please give it to her. The man desires that respect and acknowledgement of his role and his position. Please give it to him. So we hope that that has helped with Ephesians chapter 5, verse 33. As we carry on, Nyambura will lead us now into some assumptions that some assumptions with regard to needs in a marriage relationship.
Before I go to assumptions, let me just make a quick note there that what Fred has read out, chairs and the other one for the men and the women, we did not have that on the screen. I have seen a note that there's a request we put it on the screen. It's not part of our PowerPoint, but after this, we shall put the notes together, and with the emails that we have received through our secretariat, we shall share that. So apologies for that. If you did not get the acronym clearly, it shall be in the notes that we shall share. And then a second note, if you look at the Ephesians, what Fred read, this is not a request. This is Paul who was speaking to the Ephesian church, and he told them that it is a must. Must love your wife, you must respect your husband. And there is a reason for that, which of course, as we go on, we'll continue to see. So on to assumptions. As we think about the needs, and we are concentrating on the emotional needs, the 10 that we had set out at the beginning, we make many, many assumptions. And one of the assumptions we make as couples is that my needs are also my spouse's needs. I assume that which is important to me as a need should also be important to Fred, or that which is very critical as number one on my list is also his. That is an assumption that's not necessarily true. That my spouse knows my need in many times as life is moving on. Maybe right at the beginning, you realize when you are courting, when you're getting married, there was this young love. We shared a lot, you spoke a lot, and maybe the needs were very common and you shared and talked about them. But as we grow on in marriage, I think life grows on us. And many times you assume your spouse knows your need and you're wondering why he's not meeting it or she's not meeting it. And surprise, surprise, they actually don't know that that is the need you have at that time. That's a second assumption. A third one is that my spouse and I accord the same value to our emotional needs. I think you could tell from the couples that shared with us, and thanks again for sharing, right at the beginning, they did not have, their number 1 to 5 was not matching. And that is because men and women are made differently. And that is why also Paul says, you must love your wife, you must respect your husband. There is that is individual to me as a woman, there's that as individual to Fred as a man. And so our needs will not be accorded the same value. What I value most important is not what he may value. And then finally, that we usually assume that if Fred meets one of my needs, then he may think that he's satisfying all other needs that I have, and that may not necessarily be true. And that is why you hear women saying, when a man tells you he loves you, he thinks that now he has sorted out everything, or a man says, but she wants me to tell her I love her every day. I told her in the morning that she would stay for the rest of the day. She wants many other things that show that you love her, not just that one word in the morning. So meeting one need does not necessarily mean you're satisfying all other needs that she has or that he has. So we will want to go into each of the 10 needs that we had described at the beginning. We'll give the list, should be able to see the 10. Now, in this particular case, you may realize now that we have changed the order. This is not the order we had given you at the beginning when we had the table. What we have now done is put them in the order that Willard Halley, the person who did the survey on the most important needs in a couple, the order that those couples ranked them. Again, this is not exhaustive. There are more than 10, but he took the 10 that were most important, and that is what we thought we'd talk about today. So the first need is the need of affection. We will go through them with Fred. So the first need is a need of affection. And this is a need that was identified by the woman as her most important need. I did not see any of those of us, the ladies who spoke. Affection was there, yes, but I didn't see anybody put affection as their number one. That's why we are saying, I think there's someone who put it as number two. That's why we are saying it may be different from what we present to you, but this is a good representative of a number of people who said it, so I think we can look at it. So affection is an outward expression that a need that a woman has. Men, please listen to this carefully. We want affection, the outward expression that comes with touch. Touch is very important. They say the senses on the hand pass a very big message. Give her a hug. You need to kiss her in the morning as you're going away from home. When you come back home, just the caress, just to hold her, and just, you could be watching a movie or you're just lying in bed and you just hold her. Holding hands, making phone calls. I don't know how many of us called our wives today in the course of the day, or even sent her a text, just something that says, I'm thinking about you, I care about you, I love you, you're mine, my mind and my thoughts are just on you. And that she feels very special. Affection is number one on that list.
Affection was number one for the wife, meaning that it was very, very important for the wife. Some men have said that being affectionate is a big challenge for them. But as long as we are married, we really cannot run away from the duty to express affection to our spouses. Otherwise, they will be, I mean, where else would they experience affection apart from the marriage relationship? However, for the men, I mean, in terms of couples, as Nyambura was saying, sexual fulfillment came as number two. We will show the next slide shortly, but sexual fulfillment came as tops, particularly for his needs, for the man, that sexual fulfillment was really critical for them at the very top. Of course, we listened to all the brothers who shared tonight, and they put sexual fulfillment somewhere down. Either they, of course, they were very sincere, or they were very spiritual. That, but a lot of times, and as you read and as you interact with couples, sexual fulfillment is critical, particularly for the men. And for the men, this is, the aspect of just being able to have regular sexual and experience and intimacy with his wife and the love of his life. And that is very, very critical. We will be, saying shortly that, of course, the definition of sexual intimacy is very different for the man and for the woman. For the woman, intimacy is about, sexual intimacy is about that affection and that closeness. So that is very, very critical for the woman, that, sexual intimacy and that closeness. And so for the man, it's just sex. So we will share a bit more about that, but as you can see, it was affection top, sexual fulfillment, second.
All right, so the first critical need for a woman is affection. The second one is intimate conversation, which there is listed on your screen as number 3. So intimate conversation to a woman is that she wants to share her personal feelings. She wants to tell you about her future plans. She wants to tell you about her experiences, the things that she's gone through in her day. And so, and I think you have heard it said that women have, I think, 2,500 words. So when your wife comes home in the evening and she just wants to pour out what kind of day she has had, she just wants that intimate conversation, that could you be listening to her and just giving her the attention that she needs. So just being able to know you're there for her, to talk to you, you're there to listen to her. Intimate conversation is important to the lady. So that is number 2 for the woman. Now, number 2, for the man, there is recreational companionship. Recreational companionship is about men want to know that they can do what is interesting to them. They can engage in their hobbies and not have to do them alone. They can do them with their wives. So when he's doing his fun things, maybe he wants to watch a rugby match, or he wants to watch a football match, or he wants to go out and do some sports, maybe jog in the morning. If you can be able to accompany him, he will be very happy to do that with you. So for men, recreational companionship, according to Dr. Willard Haley, came number 2, because men want to be together with their wives when they are doing what is of interest to them. Now, I will say this, the first 2 needs for the men and the first 2 needs for the women are what Haley says, if these 4 needs are met, a marriage will most likely stand the test of time. If you meet the need for a woman for affection and intimate conversation, and you meet the need for a man for sexual fulfillment and recreational companionship, that marriage has more likelihood of surviving. Now, we thought that because that is a very important thing to a marriage, we're going to look at the 4 needs a bit more in detail, and the other 6 we'll just mention on this slide. So let me leave those first 4 and we'll come back to them in the following slides. Now, number 5 is the third important need for the woman, honesty and openness. And this is about being truthful about all things and no secrets or half-truths. She doesn't want to hear that you're telling her about A, you skip B, then you tell her about C, then she doesn't know about D and E, then you tell her about F. And when she looks back, she's wondering, but you didn't tell me this and you didn't tell me this. Why were you hiding it? You've invested here, but you're not telling me how much money was it. You know, you probably gave your relatives some money when you visited. You don't want her to know how much. So that lack of honesty and openness, a woman does not appreciate. She wants you to be truthful, because in being truthful with her, it means you trust her and you believe in her. So no secrets, no half-truths.
Physical attractiveness, as we shall show shortly, was number 3 in terms of the man's needs, so that he would desire that his wife can look beautiful, can appear wonderful and glorious. That was identified as a critical thing for the man. Then there is the financial support right there, which is providing for financial needs. That was number 5 for the wife in terms of significance. There's domestic support, the care for the home and children. That was number 5 for the man, that the wife would provide that support. Of course, as we engage with marriages and with couples, particularly in this day and age, where we may not necessarily have wives that we call the homemakers or home builders, those who perhaps just stay home, domestic support now is something that is in discussion a great deal, because there might not be either spouse, staying at home per se. But, just the man feeling like, I have a wife who is concerned about the children, concerned about the home, and taking care of the home. Then, of course, we have the last 2, family commitment, the whole aspect of influencing the moral development of children, and the admiration, being the greatest fan and cheerleader of your spouse. So those 2 are way down there, number 9 and 10. It doesn't mean that they're not as important as the rest, but most couples did not put them at the very top of what we would call significance or importance.
Okay, so on the screen now, you should be able to see us having ranked the needs that are important to the man. So when you meet your husband's needs, you're communicating respect. Remember, Fred talked about respect as we started off. And when you meet the needs for a woman, you're communicating love. Now, we will talk about the first 2 needs for a man and the first 2 needs for the woman, that is sexual fulfillment, recreational companionship, and then affection and intimate conversation. Now, I just want to clarify, you will see number 4, admiration. the man, as Fred said, wants to be admired as, it's like a form of affirmation. You're telling him, you know, you're my king, you're his cheerleader. Ladies, your husband wants you to be his cheerleader, that even if nobody tells him that day what he did was good, you tell him, let him know he's the king, he's the most important person. Now, you will notice number 5, domestic support and financial support. Now, this for me stood out as very interesting, because to the man, he wants a wife who will be there to take care of the home, take care of the children, and take care of the domestic issues, the help you have at house. Is the house clean? Are the children okay? So he may give you the money for it, but be in charge. He will help where he can. If the children are small, change diapers, wake up, check on the child. If the child is sick, he will help. But basically, like, you're in charge. You know how everything is running. If the man is in a situation where you have no idea what is going on in the home, and he has to step in because you totally are not interested, then that becomes a critical issue for him. On the other side, the woman wants financial support, that you can be able to make her comfortable, have a comfortable life. And sometimes, this is something I think I need to mention before we proceed. In the survey, one of the things that they realized is that it did not matter whether the wife was earning more than the man. The important thing to the woman, even if your husband is earning less than you, is that he's going out there and that he's working and bringing some money to the table. It doesn't matter whether it is less than yours. I know that is controversial. There could be conversations about that, which we may not get into. But the important thing is that he is also helping financially to support the budget. And the story here is that if then you're living beyond your means, try and keep a budget to what you can be able to handle. If his salary is not big enough, don't also ask for, as a woman, things that totally cannot be afforded, the moon, for example, and just try to live within your means.
Well, as Nyambura has already mentioned, the screen before us now is showing us the 5 important needs for the man and the 5 important needs for the wife. We already mentioned that this is not cast on stone. It's not 10 commandments divided into 2, so that we say that this is really cast on stone. But this is a working document, again, out of a survey. Nyambura has already mentioned that to the man, sexual fulfillment comes very, very critical at the top. And for the wife, affection becomes extremely critical. Now, for the man, when you talk about sexual fulfillment, for the man, when you talk about intimacy for the man, it means sex for him. For the wife, when you talk about, sex, it means intimacy. It means affection. Sex means affection, for the wife, and we're going to show that shortly. But this is, I hope you can see it clearly. These now are the top 5 for the man, top 5 for the wife, and then we'll just roll the screen and say a few more things. We have already said regarding affection that she yearns for affection. She yearns for that attention. She yearns for that care. She yearns for that hug. She yearns for that tenderness. She yearns for that conversation. She yearns for that listening ear. She yearns for that warmth. She yearns for that touch. She yearns for that closeness. That is what defines her. And that is what intimacy means to her. That the husband can go out of her way to reach out. The husband can go out of her way to reach out to her, to show her that tenderness, that closeness, that warmth. If you do not show her that attention, she might seek that attention from somewhere else. Therefore, affection, being affectionate, is really critical to her. Remember, we said that from Ephesians chapter 5, that husbands, love your wives. And the whole essence of loving your wife is about giving your wife that affection, that tenderness, that touch, that listening ear, that concern. That is what will speak to her. That is what will get into her being. That is what will turn her on as a wife. So affection there is extremely critical. And some men say, no, I do not know how to be affectionate. I was not taught how to be affectionate. I cannot hold hands. I do not know how to hold hands. And, you know, but you can be helped by your wife. They really know what they want. They are very clear as to what they want. When Nyambura comes near me, I tell her, I can see you are looking for affection. You know, I can see her from very far. When she's coming near me, when she's smiling, when she's getting closer, I can see her from a mile. And so the wife can help you. It cannot be said that men cannot be affectionate. Unless we do not have feelings, we are stones or we are rocks. We are human beings. Therefore, I do not subscribe to the school of thought that men cannot be affectionate completely. We can train ourselves to demonstrate that affection, to hold that hand, hold it, hold it, hold it. And if it is becoming difficult, tie it with something so that it gets used. You know, but we can show affection to our spouses. So this is extremely critical. And then, of course, there is the aspect of, you know, sexual fulfillment, which is very critical to the man. Remember, the man defines intimacy as sex. He defines intimacy as sex. It's very critical, you know, for him. It has been said that the husband, or rather the man, say the husband or the man, would think about sex every 17 seconds is thinking about sex. The wife might think about sex every 17 days. You know, they are not created that way. They are created to experience a touch, to experience affection, to experience that hug and that warmth. That is what they were created to experience. The man, you know, is really driven, you know, by this urge, by this testosterone, which really causes him just to see. And once he sees, is very much ready, is very much upbeat, is ready to run. And so it is important then to understand how these things work and how they relate, particularly with regard to the husband and the wife, with regard to gender and how God has wired us. But we must also say, before we click and move on to the next slide, we must also say that it is critical then for the man, if you want the very best, you know, in this fulfillment that we are talking about here, if you want the very best, then we would urge you to do your very best in affection. Because if you do not do your very best in affection and you want the very best in this second point here, then you will be looking for water from a rock. Unless you are Moses and the rod, you might not get much. So you better invest much in affection in order for you to get the very best in this, you know, point of sexual fulfillment. That is how it works, and there are no two ways around it.
I'll quickly just add on the issue of difference. I think it is important noting that these are the two most important needs: affection for the woman and sexual fulfillment for the man. So where is there, you need some form of harmony between the man and the woman. And I think the way to get around this is to realize the difference. What makes sexual fulfillment not be so important to the woman, for example, as it is to the man? And there are three things that have been identified. One is that the sexual drive that a man has for sex is much higher than the woman has. And Fred has already said it about the testosterone, the hormone. And because of that, then he has a higher sexual drive than a woman. Secondly, a man is more aware about sexual activity much earlier than a woman is. And this starts right in boyhood. You are aware about the growth of young boys and wet dreams and all of that. So men are more aware about it much earlier than a lady, and so have lived with that desire for longer, for example. And then the motivation for a man to have sex is really just because of the craving and to relieve himself for that desire for sex. But a motivation for the woman to have sex is just for intimacy and emotional bonding. So that makes one less important. For the woman, it's less important, but for the man, it's really critical and important for him to be able to function. So it is important for women to acknowledge this, that sexual fulfillment for your husband is critical to him. And for me, the way I see this is, of course, affection is about the environment you create in a marriage. You as a husband, are you creating an environment where your wife is feeling you're affectionate, you need her for who she is, not just for bed in the night, that she's important to you? And so if you create that atmosphere that, yes, the environment in our marriage is that where you are most important person to me, I constantly tell you how important you are, I show you even by touch, by the actions that I do, I give you a hug, a kiss in the morning, a kiss in the evening. If I create an environment where I'm affectionate towards you, then the woman will know that she's important to you, and it is easier for her in the evening now to fulfill the desire for sexual fulfillment. So affection is an environment in the marriage. Sex is an event that just happens for the period that it happens, but for the woman, it starts much earlier in how you've been affectionate during the day. So these two do not have to collide. They are not two needs that have to collide. But if we each work on them as a couple, then they can help us to be able to fulfill one another's needs. We want now to go to the second more important need for the man and the second important need for the woman.
For the man, the recreational companionship was identified as a critical need, where the man would desire of his wife to join him in some of the manly things or the masculine things that he enjoys doing, whether it involves some dirt or whether it is safari rally or whatever it is. The man would be so desirous that his wife would join him in some of those recreational events that have meaning for him. And that's why it would be said to the wife that try your best, show interest, try to learn. You may not know how to kick the ball or which number is played where, but show some interest. Sometimes you could join if it's a situation where you might need company to go and watch something, which could be masculine, which could be something that he enjoys as a man. It has been identified that the man would really appreciate if his wife joined him in some of those experiences, which are recreational companionship type of experiences.
And let me add that as a man, do not be too sad. You do not have to give up all the activities that you enjoy doing. The way to go about it is if you can be able to involve your wife, if she can learn some of them and be able to engage with you in those activities, that is, of course, highly encouraged. Women, let us also step up our game where we can be able to join our husbands in something that is enjoyable for him to do. Let us have that recreational companionship. It is in engaging in a pleasurable activity in the company of his wife that a man feels this need is met. Now, on intimate conversation, which is very critical to a woman, actually the survey indicated that affection and intimate conversation are very close together, that it's almost one and a close number two and easily overtake each other. So these two are really, really most important needs for the woman. And really intimate conversation for the woman is just all about being able to speak with your husband. Do we have a moment, me and Fred, where he just allows me to communicate with him, that he can give me time. It's all about really time and your presence, that your presence is there. You're there to listen to your wife. If the husband is working away from home, are you able to arrange for time when you can call in? Video call, now we have a lot of technology, and all you do is just chat. So this is time that is the two of you together, not with many other people. Then you tell her, but I gave you time and we had conversed with our aunties and the cousins were also here. It's just about the two of you, where she can pour out her heart, tell you the things that are in her mind. And conversations are basically for three reasons. One is to inform, where I just want to tell Fred, this is how my day was at work. The other one was this, to investigate. As I'm talking to him, he's also asking me, yeah, oh, that happened, and how did that make you feel? Then I know, wow, he cares about me. But also, as he's showing me he cares about me, he also then is able to understand where I'm coming from, because as he's asking me questions, how did that make you feel? He now knows the state of mind I am in, and whether in the evening I'll be able to fulfill a need probably that he has. So investigate, talk to your wife, know what exactly she's going through, and don't investigate like an investigator, a cop. No, investigate with a lot of love and emotion and care. And then understand is another reason why you want to have the conversations, to be able to understand what are her feelings, what are her interests, what activities did she engage in. So informing, investigating, and understanding should be the reason why you want to encourage those conversations. Now, you need to allow yourself to be vulnerable. Encourage vulnerability where you're free to talk one with another, whatever it is you went, however your day was. Be respectful as you have those conversations, be sensitive, avoid criticism, avoid disrespect and ridicule, and insensitive responses. So then after that, what happened? But I thought I'd given you some money for it, she will definitely not open up. She will not feel that you're really listening and that you're listening as a caring person. Another thing is develop interest in each other's favorite conversations so that you're not having conversations and conversation imeisha, we have nothing else to talk about. Develop interest. As you develop interest, Fred will probably has an interest in the US politics, then so I will come and ask, so what did Trump say today? And where did Melania go? And ask him all those other questions, for example. So I know what is his interest, he knows what is my interest, so he knows other things we can talk about other than just other things going on around us here at home. Balance your conversations so that you're giving and receiving. It's not one-sided. You may find in a couple where it's only the woman who's always talking, because we have 2,500 words we must say in a day. So I'm the one who's always talking, and all he's saying is, as he's reading a newspaper. At the end of the day, she will know you're not interested in her, and intimate conversation will not be possible. Again, also give each other undivided attention, look into each other's eyes, touch where you need to touch and say, I'm sorry if that's what it made you feel, that experience you had at work, or as you were coming home, this happened to you. I'm sorry, I wish I was there for you. Give feeling to, and it needs to be genuine. Let me say this, it needs to be very, very, very genuine. Again, undivided attention, even as we say there, look into your eyes. I know sometimes men are not able to look. There are conversations you can't have with your wife looking directly into one another's eyes. If it needs that you take a walk to have an intimate conversation, and a man is more comfortable having that conversation with you, walking side by side and not looking straight into his eyes, that is also encouraged. Whichever place you can have an intimate conversation, establish that. If it is in the car when you're driving home, if it's you go out on a Saturday evening for a cup of tea, you're encouraged to have intimate conversation.
Well, that shoulder to shoulder is very critical. The shoulder to shoulder is a demonstration of friendship, and we were created to go shoulder to shoulder, and that's why she was created from the rib, from his side, so that they can be shoulder to shoulder in this journey and they can walk together. Without taking much time, the intimate conversation here is very critical to the expression of affection, and Nyambura has already mentioned this. And sometimes men can say, no, I don't speak many words. As it has been said that 25,000 for the wife and about 12,000 for the husband in a day. That is not an excuse. We can still try to give attention and give a hearing to our loved ones so that we give them time. This is extremely critical, the intimate conversation. It is at the heartbeat, at the very heart of affection, because it involves listening, it involves attention, it involves concern, it involves that quality time. And by the way, let me just mention, then we click to the next slide and we are soon done. Don't be worried, we're soon done. Perhaps at this point I could mention Gary Chapman, The 5 Languages of Love, which would also be a good title for couples to engage with. And there's even a questionnaire where it helps couples to be able to identify their love languages, where then you'd have, when you look at intimate conversation here, you will be looking at the issue of quality time, the issue of physical touch, the issue of affirmation, the issue of service, and the issue of sharing of gifts. And those are things that you will find in Gary Chapman, Dr. Gary Chapman, The 5 Languages of Love. But this is extremely critical, and this is what defines the wife, the intimate conversation. This is where she ticks. And man, if you miss this, you miss the train. The train is gone, and you will not get that other thing that we were talking about earlier on called sexual fulfillment. We can click and go to the next one.
Okay.
Well, shortly, it should not take too long. Nyambura talked about assumptions. Now, just about 4 bullets or so of misconceptions. My spouse can perfectly meet all my needs. I think we need to be considerate, and we need to understand that we are all work in progress. And sometimes we can be overly demanding and overly judgmental to one another. That is not a license to be lazy in terms of seeking to meet needs, but it's just important to know that we are all work in progress. If I control or change my spouse, my needs will be met. So we come up with all manner of control machinery processes to be able to put them to behave in a certain way, to cause them to do this or to cause them to do that. That might not really work. I believe that I fully understand my spouse. If you begin from that point, you will lose it completely. You cannot believe that you fully understand. You must seek to know them. You cannot assume, you cannot have the misconception that you fully understand them. It is, we are knowing each other each and every day. We must be open to understanding one another each and every day, seeking to listen to them. What is it that is important to them? What is it that makes them tick? What is it that makes them happy? What is it that speaks to their heart? What is it that speaks to their being? We really must seek to, we cannot just say, I understand my wife, I understand my husband. It is a growth process. Then you say, my primary source of happiness and contentment is my spouse. Well, we already said that I have nowhere else to get from which I would get my needs met apart from Nyambura, and Nyambura, from me. That is very, very important. But what we want to say there is that we must remember to always call on God, to always seek God, to always pray, because at the end of the day, and we were discussing this with Nyambura quite a lot, and Nyambura was telling me, we really cannot just give that as a license so that people think that they have a leeway. But I was saying that at the end of the day, God has the capacity to meet the spiritual needs that we have. And most of the need, of course, the aspect of sexual fulfillment, you really cannot seek that from God. Every husband must do their very best, but at least you can pray for your husband. You can pray for the husband. God touch him, God help him, give him good health if he's unwell. Just do something in his life. But what we are saying is that every person must seek to engage with God, seek God. And we believe that as long as your spiritual intimacy with God is right, you will be able then to meet the needs of the other, your spouse. So it's important then, so that we do not just elevate the spouse as to being at the very, that my happiness, my contentment, and everything about me will only be met by my spouse, and we relegate God on the side. That relationship might not go very far. So we must seek then to put God at the center. And as I'm spiritually intimate with God, and God speaks to my heart, I would then be able to be affectionate and intimate with my wife. So that is what, the emphasis that we wanted to make right there. Sometimes we come in and we say, I want to be happy, but you're not giving to the other person so that, you can then be able to, you are not investing, like, let me throw in something else, then we'll click. The statement about the love bank, where you put in, and sometimes a misconception is that I will just receive from Nyambura even though I'm not putting in. I'm not giving in to her in any way, but I'm expecting that her love bank for me will just remain full tank all through. So that too is a misconception, that I will just always get from my wife or my husband, even though I'm not putting in at all.
Let me just clarify, just in case anyone is not familiar with the love bank. The love bank is really a terminology that is used for couples in a marriage, that you're putting in the positive things that you're doing to build your marriage. And so you have a love bank where when Fred is affectionate towards me, he's putting love units of affection into that bank. When I am able to fulfill his sexual desire, then I am putting in a love units into that love bank, so that your love bank is always full. It's really like an account of money. Your love bank is always full with the positive things that you're putting in to build your relationship. And then when there's turmoil, there's conflict, like will happen in all marriages, then your love bank is found that it has something you can make withdrawals. So when, for example, if there's conflict in our marriage, then we are able to draw from the trust that we have put in our marriage, from the positive things in our relationship that can help us at a time of crisis. So that's the concept of love bank. Thought I just clarify in case somebody needed that. All right, so we want to just get towards the end of this. Please stay with us. The symphony. I want to give Fred the opportunity to explain what we mean by the symphony, harmony, and dance.
Well, I mean, we're trying now to describe 7 things that will make your orchestra tick. 7 things that will make the whole experience of the fulfillment of your needs within your marriage relationship work. 7 things that will cause beautiful music to come from your marriage, to come from your bedroom, to come from your living room, to come from your experience of marriage. What are these 7 things? What are these 7 wires that we must play? What are these 7 critical things that will make the orchestra function well, that will help you to meet your needs in your relationship? We have identified just 7 of them. There could be more, but we're talking about self-awareness, the aspect of being conscious of your needs. We've just sought today to spend a little bit of time. This can take a whole day or a big conference to do this, larger conference, but being conscious of your needs, being aware of what you exactly need. Sometimes we are not so certain as to what we need, and we are not able to communicate it well to our spouse, so that our spouse can be able to do their very best in meeting that need. So the element of just being self-aware. What do I need as a husband? That's why we started earlier on, giving us an exercise to be able to identify. Those of us in the email, we told you, can you take a piece of paper and write down what you consider to be your needs separately from your spouse? What is it that is important to you? What is it that is significant to you as your need? We gave us that kind of assignment. So that awareness is critical to the whole aspect of the orchestra, of the dance, the whole aspect of experiencing fulfillment insofar as the whole experience of needs is concerned.
The second one is speak about those needs that you are conscious about. When you're self-aware, this are my needs, speak about them to your spouse, communicate them often. Now you begin to see the importance of intimate conversation, because that is where now when you're having that intimate conversation with your spouse, you're able to share about your needs. These are the things I'm feeling in our marriage, I'm not getting. You're not affectionate towards me. You're not contributing financially the way I expected you to. The other one is seek to understand than to be understood. Of course, many people may be familiar with this from the 7 habits of effective people. Ideally is that you seek to understand your spouse first. Do not be quick to say, but you're not hearing what I am saying. This is my position. Can you give in? First, seek to understand where they're coming from, and then explain yourself so that you can be understood. If we all go with that kind of humility of wanting to first understand my spouse, then we will all be giving 100% to try to make sure I understand her need. So this is what she needs me, she expects from me. This is what she needs me to do for her.
You have to be ready to self-sacrifice. Marriage is a covenant of sacrifice. It's a relationship of sacrifice, that I would be so much concerned about Nyambura's need over and above my own. And I would be willing to give her the very best of my time and the very best of my energy and the very best of my being, so that as long as she's happy and she's satisfied and she's fulfilled, then I would be happy and I would feel great. So it calls for self-sacrifice. And we cannot say that I will wait for my husband to give 100% before I give 100%. We've been called to give 100% of ourselves and let the spouse give their 100%. But it calls for self-sacrifice. We must deny ourselves. There are things that I might have to deny myself. I might have to go an extra mile, like the days that I used to go and pick Nyambura by matatu so that we can walk back home together by matatu, so that I can give her company as she's coming home. And I escorted her early in the morning, in the very early years of her marriage, early in the morning, so that she would be safe and I would give her company. It called for me to leave, to get off my bed and get up from my sleep and go into the cold early in the morning to be able to accompany her. It calls for great sacrifice in order to fulfill the needs of your spouse.
And actually, the value of that is so critical and should run through your marriage. Just to mention as an example, yesterday I was working and I had a meeting, and Fred chose to drop me to the office and stay on until my meeting ended. And I thought it would be an hour or two. It took 3 hours, but he patiently stayed in the car, read some books, and waited for me to come back home. So even when your circumstances change, he used to take me to work in a matatu to keep me safe. But now he chooses to drive me and wait for me. That sacrifice, he then has not changed. He's the same person who married me many years ago, and he's still practicing that. So even when circumstances change and God blesses you and you have the resources, do not change the practice. The practice should not change because of the blessings that you have. Quickly going on to submit to one another. This is about just humility and understanding. As we talked about giving 100% to the marriage, I give in 100%, Fred gives 100%, knowing that I cannot get this from anybody else. He's the only one I am married to. He's the only one I'm allowed to share with my life together. So I fully submit to him. And remembering that you're complementing one another, you're not competing. It is not a fight for who will win. It is about giving in for the sake of your marriage. Service is really related to self-sacrifice. Marriage is about service. What can I do for Fred where he needs me to step in? Do I need to quickly brush his shoes for him so that he can get to church in time for the service and to preach? Do I need to make sure his tie is ready? Just that service. What do you do for your spouse? So being intentional to serve your spouse. And it should give you great joy to be able to do that, knowing there is nobody else who will come and do that for you. It is your role.
The servanthood is really the call to humility and brokenness. To the extent that God has called us to lead our homes, but He's called us to lead our homes with an attitude of servanthood. It is a position of humility. It is a position that we receive as a great privilege. But that yieldedness is the work of the Spirit of God in us. And the Spirit of God continues to break us, that then we can have the disposition and the attitude of servanthood in our relationship. That I'm not here to boss Nyambura around. I'm here to be her servant in a way. I'm here to be a steward of which that God has given into my hands as the husband, of course, as the wife as well. So the attitude of servanthood is really critical in being able to achieve this harmony and this.
Oh, Pastor, you have muted yourself. Sorry. You're muted.
All right.
Thank you.
So basically we are more or less done. Don't sleep on us, but we'll be done shortly. But basically we mentioned about the whole question of Nyambura talked about service and it takes work and being intentional, serving one another and looking for ways in which we can serve each other at home there. The other day during Father's Day, I was surprised with a breakfast at the bedside that was very special. I'm told that our son created that that idea, which was such a blessing. But then finally, as we click and we're done, is the whole element of servanthood. We have been called to be servants, the attitude of servanthood, a disposition of humility, a disposition of meekness. It is the work of the Holy Spirit in us. We must therefore learn really not to boss one another around, because we've been called to be servants, even in the marriage relationship.
And to remember that each of us are stewards to one another. God, in all the men that were in the world, found that Fred was the best match for me and my best mate. So we will all give an account of what we did with the relationships that God put us in. How did I treat Fred? How did he treat me? we shall all give an account. So the aspect of stewardship, which then covers all of this, is very important. So as we seek to meet each other's needs, let us remember that God is the one who gives us the strength to do that. We cannot do it in our own strength, but we'll also be held accountable with what we did with God gave us to steward. Okay. We are just about to finish.
We're trying to show the last slide, which is basically something that will show on the screen, but a little bit of a jam. But that will be the last one, and there we are. There we are. There we are. This is basically just a screen here that we are sharing with us, and it will just stay there. You can look around, but it is also, it's just showing, you know, some things that couples can do together to share and to show affection and to serve one another. The cooking, the driving, the movie, the holiday, the talk, the football match, music, game night, reading scriptures, carpooling with other couples that together as a couple, but there you are, you know, singing, trips, laughter, worship, rest. By the way, that worship, you could be the best singer at home. You know, at home you are allowed to be the best musician. I mean, you know, playing, dance, praying together. So, you know, this screen here is just a mix of many things that couples can go do together. Ministry and service, we really like doing that together with Nyambura. We really like doing that. So yeah, Nyambura is pointing at dancing. I don't know. It seems like she is recruiting me to dance tonight. But so there you are. Just some things that couples can do together.
And reading scriptures together is a fun thing to do, or just your husband or your wife reading a book to you. I think I find that one very interesting. We've tried it once in a while. Okay, so what we have here is just the reading resources. Again, with the notes that we shall share, we shall highlight these 3 books. There are actually 3 books. John Hagee with his wife have written the book, and it's a book you turn over to read the other side. So the What Every Woman Wants in a Man and What Every Man Wants in a Woman is one book. And then there's Love and Respect and His Needs, Her Needs. Most of this information we got from these books and from others that we have read over time, and of course from our own experience. So we shall be able to share some notes through the emails we got, but these are references you can check on for further reading.
We want to thank you so much for listening to us tonight, allowing us to spend your evening with you, this being the very first of the talk series of the Marriage Ministry of the Rejoice Baptist Church. We hope that you have been blessed. We have shared our email addresses. You could send us a word, send a query, because we might not take so many tonight. Some might sleep and begin interceding for the night because the night is gone. And but we've shared our email addresses. You could write to us. You could engage us. We would be very, very grateful indeed. We are grateful that you joined. May the Lord bless our marriages, and may we always seek to meet each other's need. And remember, in order to meet each other's need, you really must seek to understand that need, not just assume that you know it. Don't just assume what she needs or what you believe he needs. You better seek to understand it and do the very best as you believe he would want for you to do and you would want for her to do. The Lord bless you so much. We are grateful that you joined us.
Pastor Fred?
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, there are 2 questions on the board.
Okay, maybe you can go ahead and read.
Okay.
All right, we can see.
Q&A.
Yes, okay.
You can read or I read?
We can see it.
Okay.
Okay, maybe you can just read out.
Okay. So the first question, actually typed it in there. The book's premise seems to put the pressure on the spouse to meet their partner's needs, or else their marriage may not survive. So what about the aspect of sticking it out in a marriage for a lifetime even when one's needs are not met as well?
Well, that is the place to begin. I mean, we've been called to live out our marriage vows. Remember, we made a vow, we made a commitment. And at the very beginning, we defined marriage as a covenant relationship. When we say that being a covenant relationship, it is therefore an exclusive relationship, whereby it is only your wife who can meet your need. You cannot get your need met anywhere else. It is only the husband who can meet your need. You cannot get that need met anywhere else. So we want to say this, that we've been called to stick it out. We've been called to do, I mean, of course, with God's help, to really live our vows, to really live our vows in the marriage calling. But having said that, we also must be just cognizant of the fact that the marriage can be extremely frustrating if you live in a marriage where your spouse does not care at all. Your spouse does not care to show affection, does not care to listen, does not care to be sexually intimate with you, does not care and is not concerned about you. That can be a very frustrating situation. So that even as you stick it out, you might stick it out. However, at some point, because we're human, you might find yourself really, falling at some point in time. So therefore, yes, we must stick it out. Yes, we must do our very best. Yes, we really must. However, we must teach, we must encourage that in order for the marriage to be happy, in order for the marriage to be fulfilling, in order for the marriage to be satisfying, we really must be concerned about each other's needs. That is when the marriage will not just be surviving or will not just be living for the sake of the children, but will be living truly in a happy environment and setting, the way God created us to live. He did not create us to suffer in a marriage. He created us to enjoy marriage, not to endure marriage. And sometimes when needs are not being met, we find ourselves in endurance as opposed to enjoyment. So yes, we really appreciate that question. It is important. We encourage couples to stick it out and to really just do your very best to pray and to, we would not say that, oh, my husband is not doing this for me, therefore I'm exiting. My wife is not doing this, therefore I'm exiting. But we want to make the point that if that situation were to continue for prolonged duration and seasons of life, the marriage can actually be compromised, because again, as we said, there is nowhere else where the husband will get his needs met. There's nowhere else where the wife will get her needs met. I think that those are the comments that you would make.
I'll just quickly add that where we are coming from and where we are standing at now is that we are making a realization that as a couple, the woman has her needs and the man has his needs. And that is a fact that we cannot hide from. And that's where we dealt with the assumptions and the misconceptions. Now, having said that each of us has needs, and you're in a relationship where the only person who can meet your need is your spouse, your wife or your husband, you're in marriage for life, because we are talking from the standpoint of a Christian marriage, then we are saying for you to have an affair-proof marriage, then you need to acknowledge that your wife has needs, you have needs, and it's only the two of you who can meet each other's needs. Now, I talked about an affair because, for example, I think, and I should have mentioned this, when we talk about intimate conversation for a woman, many people, you will realize, get slowly into a relationship with a workmate or a friend because the woman maybe started talking to her colleague at the office and the guy was listening to her more than her husband listens to her at home. And so she starts to share, yes, this is what is going on with my children. This is are the needs I have at home. And with time, she realizes this guy listens to her. And before knowing it, she has an emotional relationship with the man. So if the husband does not realize that the wife has that need to have an intimate conversation with her, then somebody else out there will be meeting that need. And the same thing for a man. If as a woman you're not meeting his need for sexual fulfillment, somebody else out there will meet the need. So what we are saying is for us to build an affair-proof marriage, one that you will both be happy in and one that you'll both enjoy, because that is what God intended for marriage, you must realize that there is a need to meet the needs. It's not about putting pressure on each other to meet it. And that's why we said, talk about your needs, have those conversations. Actually, marriage should not be one that where you're enduring, because that's the only place you have to go. There's nowhere else you can go. So you have a lifetime in there. You don't want to be in there enduring. And we pray that God would help us to get that to that point where with him in the center of our marriage, we are able to relate with one another freely and in an open relationship.
Yes, marriage really, I mean, needs are really basic to human beings. And the marriage relationship seek to fulfill some basic human needs that we know that we have. And but the point is that we're not giving license, and there's nowhere where license is given that if Nyambura does not meet my need tonight, then tomorrow morning I'm on the road going to look for somebody else to meet my needs. Not at all. But we must remember that a prolonged state where we are not sensitive and seeking to meet each other's needs can compromise the health and the welfare and the fabric of the marriage relationship. The question too says, if affection alone, is affection alone really enough to bridge the gap between 17 seconds and 17 days? What if umejaribu na bado kuna shida? You've done all that you can, na bado kuna shida. We would only like to say that this situation here might require some deeper conversation and deeper communication, because this could be an indicator of some, indicator of some factors that one would not be aware of. What is it that would create a situation where you have been affectionate, you have loved, you have had intimate conversations, you have sought to do everything that you believe you ought to do to your spouse, but they are not responding? Why are they resisting? Why is there resistance? It is important to ask that question. Why is there resistance? Is resistance because of maybe trust, that there's some trust issues? Is resistance because of, they feel that you have not, what is causing the resistance? I think there's need for deeper communication. There's need for deeper engagement, that you may understand your spouse, why they are resisting. Why are they resisting? Are they, and this does not mean that whoever asks this question, this would apply to them, but are they having their need met somewhere else? You see, so that when you make your proposal, you come in with your proposal and your desire, then you are not able to go through, you are not able to be received. Such would be questions, not to mean that the questioner would be in such kind of state, but it's important to ask, to have conversation, open conversation. It is important to have communication so that you can hopefully understand what is it that is going on in a relationship, that even if I try to do my very best, it is not being reciprocated. I'm not being able to be received, so that we can have intimacy and we can be able to experience this together. So that would be the comment, and there could be a variety of reasons. I think we should also be, sensitive to the emotions of the other spouse. What is it that is going on? What is their state of mind? What are they going through? What seasons are they going through? What is happening in their being and in their emotions and in their hearts? Remember, for the man, if it is the man who asked this, for example, if it's the man who asked this, remember, for the man, it is so easy to have sexual experience because of the drive. Remember, for the wife, it is a whole different thing altogether. It is defined as intimacy. It is defined as affection. So that if the wife feels that my husband, all that he wants from me is just my body, then there could be a problem right there. But I think that the core of this, in terms of looking at this question, is the couple really needs to have an open conversation and communication. And the person who has shown all the affection really need to walk back and really, of course, not to be too harsh and too judgmental and not too cruel. This is why we also tell them to stick it out. Question 1 said stick it out. We say stick it out right here, so that you can be considerate and you can seek to understand why the resistance why you are not, it's not being, your whatever is not being reciprocated, so that you can have communication that may help you to have a better relationship and a better experience. But we do want to say, please stick it out, don't give up. That is where your life is, that is where your future is, that is where all that you need is, and you cannot achieve it somewhere else.
Again, let me just quickly add that when you talk about affection, we mentioned that that is all about the environment. What kind of environment are you creating in your marriage? So the question was, is affection alone enough to bridge the gap between 17 seconds and 17 days? So if you're feeling you've given your wife affection, but nothing is happening, when then it's about sexual fulfillment, you're not getting it, the question would be, what is it that you're doing to give her that affection? Maybe though that is not what she needs. And that's why we talked about asking and communicating to one another, this is my need. Probably what you're doing and you think is affectionate to her is probably repulsing her. It's not, she's not even interested in that. So communicating our needs one to another goes a very long way, because then, and actually we should have mentioned this, is when we are talking about meeting one another's needs, whatever it is you're doing to meet that need needs to be effective. Because then you could just be doing things thinking you're meeting her need and there's nothing much you're doing. So it needs to be effective. It needs to be something that you enjoy doing, because then you will do it for a long time. So that's why talking about it also is important. It needs to be mutually understood that yes, this is my need and I will meet it this way. So conversation one to another is very, very important, because this is a long journey that you're walking with your wife. It's not just for 1 or 2 days.
Thank you very much. And God bless you. Look forward to other Fridays as we join in.